Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in this week to This Is Why I'm Not Invited. I know it isn't Sunday, it's Wednesday. I'll get to the reason why I missed in a minute, but can you believe that this is already the 18th episode? Are you as excited about this as I am? Because I think it's actually pretty awesome. Anyways, Happy New Year. Well, technically, it's actually New Year's Eve. It's December 31st at 7 p.m. The ball isn't going to drop for some of us for a few hours, but I figured I would get this episode in. That way, we could just round off the year and just start fresh next week. I also want to let everybody know congratulations on surviving the holidays. It's been pretty hit or miss in the kink world. Some people are having a great time hanging out with family, and others are not having a great time at all. But no matter what happened, you made it, and we're literally knocking on New Year's Day. Cannot wait. The reason for the late release this week is because for those of you who follow my page and are aware, I actually have some medical issues. And Sunday, actually, probably this past weekend, my body was just like, you're not doing anything at all. It was actually pretty unexpected and just really rough. Imagine not being able to do things, not because you're tired, which I get, we all get tired, but I literally am inhibited from doing things because my body is like, absolutely not. Do what you want to think you can do, but we're not doing anything. It sucks to be sick and to be sick all the time. Having a chronic illness is not fun at all. And there's this cruel irony to it. Basically, your own body, your own flesh is your scene partner, but also the bad guy. So, because of my own issues, and I know that I'm not the only kinkster that has chronic illnesses, I decided to do an episode about kinksters with chronic illnesses and basically just letting everybody know that it's nothing to be ashamed of. It happens. And there's actually a lot of promising information and research out there that has a direct connection and correlation between kinksters and why we do BDSM. As everybody knows, kink is already very complicated. And for some people, they like to call it messy. And it's not just a type of play. I'm not just talking about wax play or food play. Kink can definitely be messy. If we add in chronic illness, suddenly every plan is a negotiation. But instead of having that plan with another person, you're basically bargaining with yourself, your body, and the universe. One of the good things that we have discovered, well, researchers, they basically found out that people who have chronic pain, they actually engage in consensual play often. So there's a big correlation between people who have chronic pain and then people that have chronic pain that actually do BDSM, which I think is great because you would think that if someone has a chronic illness, we might shy away from doing more physical and risky activities, if you would. But there's actually a lot of mental health benefits for people with chronic illnesses that engage in BDSM. And I think that's wonderful. It's not for the reasons that people think. Your pain, when you have chronic pain, it doesn't just disappear. That's a fantasy world. If I could have a scene and all my pain could go away, I would be the most masochistic bottom you would ever meet. But that's not how that works. We've discovered that because we have a choice, we have control, and we have a new way to make context of sensation. We're able to manipulate the ways that we experience our chronic pain, and this makes it feel different. Anybody who thinks that that's trivial clearly doesn't understand the scene. Life, unfortunately itself, it honestly becomes a dungeon. Now, I'm not going to begin to talk about other people's experiences because there is a lot of different types of chronic illnesses. My chronic illness has a lot to do with nerve pain, which is great. That's great. It's the best thing ever. I really hope no one ever experiences nerve pain because honestly, I should be a masochist with the pain that I experience every day. But again, there's so many different types of chronic illness. I do not want anyone to think that my singular life experience with chronic illness is the same across the board. It's not. My experience is my own experience. I do a little bit of research on things before I talk about it, and I try to go off with what research says. But what I experience in my body is not what other people experience in their body. But for me, having a chronic illness affects everything: my energy level, my attention, the will to live, if you would. Even my desire is affected. Satisfaction for me can shift dramatically. Sensation, endurance, stamina, energy, just interaction with people. It's this vacuum that just keeps taking, right? There's no solidity to it, and it's a lot more down than it is up. Here's the kicker. Desire doesn't just vanish though, because my capacity does. Kink, it teaches us this. It teaches negotiation and patience, as well as boundaries. And those skills, those are priceless. All of these skills actually translate very, very well when you live in a body that's really unpredictable. I cannot tell you how many times my immune system just decides that, hey, it's the Dom today. And all negotiation is no longer fun and games because now it feels to me like life or death. This is not a scene I signed up for. One of the things that I tend to grapple with the most, and I hate it, I hate not knowing how to reply. I hate feeling that I cannot be genuine in my reply. I hate that I feel like I am expected to answer a certain way for the comfort of everyone else because I want to let you know, no one really cares how you feel. A lot of people that are around me and a lot of people that I interact with, we have this very parasocial relationship, and I will definitely talk about this another day. But a lot of people that come to the venue, they're not there for me, the genuine me. They're there for the perception of me that they have. And when that is being said, when small talk comes up, it's very small, but also for me, it's very unauthentic. How am I going to tell somebody who asks me if I'm okay that I'm not okay, that everything hurts? My legs hurt, my hands are swollen, I'm hiving, I have nerve pain. I don't. I mean, try to think about that. Try picturing explaining that to somebody normal. Yeah, I want to play tonight, but my body said no. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a few people that actually come to the venue that are genuinely interested in the me that's not performing. And with those people, I'm absolutely able to be like, hey, I'm in a lot of pain right now. This is happening. That's happening. Can we rain check for another day? I am very, very grateful to those people who see me as a person and they respect my body just being the worst and having a flare up. Honestly, on those days, I feel like I just have a night of negotiation with medications instead. So if you ever see me at a dungeon trying to like hurry up and open a bottle of like Tylenol, just freaking out, just keep going. Just go on your way. Okay. This is something that I have learned to laugh at. I have dark humor, and having a chronic illness has definitely made me funnier for sure. The punchline at the end of the day is that I can't cancel reality. All I can do is laugh. And for me, it counts. Again, I just want to say that having a community matters. Having a community is essential. Kink spaces that understand pacing, negotiation, and flexibility, this is definitely a lifeline. Again, I am very fortunate to have people in my vanilla life, in my vanilla job, that also understand my pain. And one of the reasons why is because they too have chronic illnesses, right? So we're all just messed up together. But sometimes at certain places, it all just becomes background noise. That's okay because depth is better than volume. When your body just decides to veto you and basically take all the power, you can't override it. So you have to find ways to basically get through it. Whenever chronic illness comes around, you learn to basically count your energy currency. And I mean that exactly how it sounds. When you have a chronic illness, you are very aware of how much energy you have and how much energy you have to spend. Going upstairs, driving places, sitting down, peopling, right? This all takes up energy currency. And for people who don't have chronic illness, I feel like their energy currency is endless. And I love that for them. I wish that I had more energy currency to basically expend. But unfortunately, again, when I have a flare up, those are the days where I have to choose where, what, and how I'm going to do things because my energy currency is basically tapped out. It's running on low, and I'm going to go through withdrawals at one point. Good days, those are deposits. Again, desire doesn't always match capacity, but kinksters like us, kinksters that have chronic illnesses, we're smart and we manage our time and our energy currency very, very well. Negotiation for people with chronic illnesses is one of the things that I've always seen the most that is, it's not up for negotiation. It's instinct. I have definitely seen people who don't have chronic illnesses skip negotiation, and that makes me cringe. It makes me, like my face just scrunches up, right? I have never once seen people that don't have a chronic illness or be neurodivergent or something of that outside of the normie realm, right? Never talk about negotiation first. Even though we negotiate, the universe is going to throw us some curveballs. That's why we have to be flexible. That's why we become the epitome of dark humor that you see today. Whenever we're having these issues with our flare-ups or our illnesses are just forefront and center that day, consent is always loud. I feel like it's even louder than normal. You can't fake participation whenever you feel bad. You can't fake participation when you're sick. You can't fake participation when you don't have the energy for anything. Every single movement, every interaction, that all takes energy. That all costs spoons, right? And we're just running out of spoons. Every yes counts. Every no is really important. Kink teaches this to us by default. And chronic illness, this actually enforces it. When they come together, it actually creates something that's terrifyingly disgusting and beautiful at the same time. I actually read something or heard something years ago, and I thought when I heard it that that was pretty intense. Now that I'm older, now that I actually understand what that phrase means, it hits in a whole new level. What I heard years ago was adapt or die. And at first I was like, dang, that's really rough. That's kind of fucked up, man. Like, that's really deep. Why did we go there? But now that I've been living with a chronic illness for a very long time, I understand what that means. I finally learned what that piece of advice that I had read or heard years ago, I now understand what that means. Adaptation, that's a skill. Adaptation is survival. Pivoting, negotiation, renegotiating, right? Pacing, improvising. These are all different ways in which we adapt. These are all skills that translate from everyday life into dungeon life and back to everyday life. If we're having a day where we're having a flare up, that's a mental scene. If we're having low energy, we have to dominate our scheduling that day. Every single adjustment is a victory, no matter how big or small it is. It's exhausting, but it's glorious and it helps us redefine ourselves. Due to my flare up, I've literally not been able to have events for the past few days, and it's killing me on the inside. You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me. Okay. I want to go out. I want to see my friends. I want to play. Okay. So on days like today and Sunday, where basically my body has grounded me, told me to stay inside, tells me what to do, I hate it. I learned to laugh. I've learned to become funnier. I've learned to basically like accept things that I cannot control. And I hate it. I feel like that's so cut, copy, and paste, right? Like just live, laugh, love. No, absolutely not. I've definitely learned a lot about giving up control because of my chronic illness. No matter what I want to do, when my flare up happens, I literally can do nothing. So I learned to laugh at it. And humor for me has definitely become essential. It helps a lot to kind of see like the silver lining, light at the end of the tunnel, whatever you want to call it. But I also think it plays a really big role in the context of negotiating scenes when you do have a chronic illness. We can plan things, right? You can plan a scene, you can negotiate it. But when push comes to shove, if your chronic illness just flares up that day, suddenly the safe words and all of those limits and boundaries and things that you've talked about, they become life-saving. Learning to laugh at the pure absurdity, it's just an adaptive skill. It's just a coping mechanism. Dark humor, for me, this helps me reinforce boundaries because I can joke about it. I can joke about the energy currency that this particular scene is going to cost me. Okay. And that for me makes that scene so much more fun because I know that I only have so many spoons available. And if I'm choosing to exert my spoons with this person during this scene, I am going to get my money's worth. I'm going to let you know right now, I am going to get my money's worth. And that's going to be one of the best scenes that I've had. A fun fact that I actually just discovered while looking up things for this episode is that researchers that have studied pain and BDSM, they actually have some of the same conclusions. And that's basically playful voluntary engagement in BDSM with people who experience chronic pain. It actually reduces perceived stress as well as increasing a sense of control. So yeah, this is basically a form of medicine for us. Definitely take that and put it in your kink box. I do need to say, though, one of the things that I think is really important is that people who do have chronic illnesses should definitely not make themselves smaller. They should not see their illness as, I don't know, I'm trying to find the right word for it. It's not a negative. It's nothing that we can do. We can't fix it, right? It's something that's happened to us, but it's nothing that brings us down. Having a chronic illness, if anything, should give us more empowerment. Because being honest about our limitations and your limitations, it's not bad. It's not a weakness. It's leverage. Every scene, this depends on communication and trust. Chronic illness forces these two things to the extreme. You need to be able to articulate exactly what you want, exactly what you can handle, exactly how you feel. And sometimes it has to be moment to moment. Things change in the blink of an eye, and you need to be able to express that for yourself safely. That kind of vulnerability that actually creates intimacy and respect. And the scene just becomes so much better. If someone doesn't honor that, they're not only just a dick, they're unsafe. Illness, this can be seen as a vulnerability, but we can take that vulnerability and turn it into art. And thankfully for us, other kinksters in the scene, they should be able to help, and they have the skill set to help them basically navigate this to ensure that we're all having a good time here. During scenes, people with chronic illnesses have a little bit more on their plate because, yes, everyone has things that we have in common, whether you have a chronic illness or not. We coordinate stamina. We figure out our pain thresholds, our energy reserves. Are you taking medications, right? Emotional loads. One of the things I used to tell the guy I used to play with is when I would be on my period, right? Yes, I know some of you are thinking TMI. Well, it's really important to talk about that because for me, whenever I'm on my period, my skin becomes more sensitive. I get hotter. Things that really wouldn't bother me the other 25 days of the month, now I'm very easily irritated. Things that are a little bit more stingy. The things I typically enjoy, they don't feel good. So even those physiological changes that I am subjected to, that makes a difference. And it's really important, again, that we're able to express these with other people. I feel like people that are in kink, this scene negotiation, it basically is a rehearsal for real life limits and limitations that we have. A kinkster that has a chronic illness, they basically have an elevated understanding and I would want to say like an advanced understanding of boundaries. And that's because every single choice for them, for you, for me, that costs us spoons. Research says that people with chronic illnesses who practice structured negotiation, they actually report a higher mental resilience. What this means is that these particular kinksters, they have the ability to adapt, cope, and bounce back from stress, adversity, or trauma through their flexibility, problem solving, and emotional regulation. These characteristics are basically created and strengthened by things like mindfulness, strong social ties, self awareness, and healthy living, among some other things. I do want to mention something, and I'm going to probably revisit this multiple times, so just prepare yourselves. It's about consent. We have to understand consent is a living, breathing, ever evolving entity of its own. We got to treat it like its own thing every single time. A yes today does not mean a yes tomorrow. A yes right now does not mean a yes 10 minutes from now. I really feel that this is very, very important, and clarity here amongst communication is key. Chronic illness, this actually gives that more clarity and it makes it non optional. In kink, every single time, you should and you absolutely must negotiate limits and signals. In life, we have to do the same thing, especially when we have a flare up, because flare ups, they cause fatigue, mobility issues, speech issues. Every scene basically leads to real time consent training. And that's why kinksters that often have these chronic illnesses, they set the gold standard for honesty and explicit, in depth agreements. And I think that's fantastic. Just because somebody is having a flare up or they have a chronic disease or a chronic illness, that doesn't mean that they can't play. It basically means that there might be some last minute adjustments or just overall adjustments to the type of play that was planned. And that's something that everyone should be understanding of and flexible with. Adaptive play is a thing, and it's basically survival for kinksters like myself who have chronic illness. You can totally substitute a physical scene with sensory or maybe even psychological domination that day if you're having like weird skin sensations. You can switch the intensity depending on how your nervous system is behaving. Chronic illness actually teaches a lot of us to become the masters of improv. Kink, on the other hand, will help us learn structure. When you put these two things together, you get a very adaptive, flexible, safe, yet very fulfilling scene. Planning around unpredictability can definitely be exhausting, and some people don't do well with that because they need a lot of structure. But at the same time, it's very empowering for those of us that have to basically move away from our structured plans. You learn to be creative without compromising safety. And this is honestly a very empowering tool for us to have in our kink toolbox. Let's take this a little bit further and one step in the opposite direction. Let's talk about where chronic illness and kink, they basically stop being parallel and they start to overlap. Everything that we've talked about so far basically has been about our body, living in the body, and basically whether our body decides to agree with us or not or give us mercy that day. Chronic illness forces us to negotiate with yourself first, and then if you have the time and capacity and energy, to then negotiate with people around you. BDSM just gives that negotiation language, structure, as well as witnesses. This isn't about managing the symptoms better. It's about recognizing that consent doesn't start in the dungeon. It starts at home. It starts with yourself. I do want to bring up something that I feel does not get enough attention, or it doesn't get talked about the way that it should, or even talked about enough. People that have chronic illnesses, we actually practice a higher level of consent by default, by no choice. Medical research actually consistently shows fluctuating capacity. This actually requires continuous consent assessment, not just a one time agreement. BDSM already operates this way. We have check ins, renegotiation, checking in during the seam, adjustments, right? Something happens, we pivot, we adjust in a positive manner. When your body, when that changes day to day, consent becomes dynamic instead of theory. That makes chronically ill kinksters dangerously good at clarity. Honestly, if someone can't handle that, they're not equipped for ethical kink, anyways. Another thing that I think people don't understand or they can't really grasp the concept of is that pain is not just one thing, there's different types. Medical literature is very, very clear on this. Pain itself is not a single experience. There's chronic pain, acute pain, controlled pain, and erotic pain. We're not going to talk about that today, but yes, all of these different types of pain, they actually activate different neurological pathways. In BDSM scenes that involve pain, these are negotiated, contextual, right? And this is why many chronic pain patients, they actually report feeling more agency during consensual play. That this by all means does not mean that kink cures pain. I'm not saying that. Let's not be crazy here. Kink does not cure pain. However, it means control and predictability. These things can actually change how pain is processed, and this distinction matters. Pretending it isn't is just lazy. There have been studies, and I feel like there's going to be more in the future, but the studies on trauma and chronic illness, this actually repeatedly shows that loss of control is a major stressor. However, when BDSM is done correctly, it returns control through structure, roles, and consent. Even surrender itself, like that's negotiated. This is the irony that people tend to miss. For somebody whose body regularly betrays them, choosing when and how this control shifts is actually very grounding. This isn't about sex. This isn't about pain. This isn't about surrender. It's about agency. Yes, that's a legitimate nervous system regulation strategy, whether you want to mention it or recognize it as being one or not. So there's also an intelligence of stopping. And people with chronic illnesses, they are statistically more likely to stop activities early to prevent the worsening of symptoms. People need to understand that in kink, when you stop, it's not a failure at all. It's actually a skill. Safe words, pauses, and scene termination, these are all really important. And these are built in harm reduction tools. A kink space that punishes stopping is not consensual. It's reckless and dangerous. Chronically ill kinksters often model the healthiest stopping behavior in the room. All of this all leads up to the one most important aspect of every single scene ever. And again, we're here back at aftercare. We all understand how important aftercare is. And if you don't, you shouldn't be doing kink, okay? However, I'm going to assume you know what you're doing. You've heard the podcast, you've talked to other people, you've gotten other information, and you know how important aftercare is. I've already mentioned this before that aftercare is not an option. If you ever try to talk or negotiate with somebody that doesn't even talk about aftercare or forgets aftercare or says, oh, that's not things that we talk about, you need to just leave them alone. We're not touching that. But, anyways, aftercare is not optional. There are medical studies that even show how important it is. These studies, they emphasize recovery periods. Now, these studies don't necessarily distinguish the differences between physical and emotional aspects of it, but there are still studies that show that no matter what occurs, there needs to be a rest period after exertion and or stress, physical or emotional. Guess what? BDSM already has a language for this. We have a term for this. It's called aftercare. For people with chronic illness, aftercare is not cute, it's not extra, it's part of the necessary infrastructure that we need to survive that scene. Water. What is up with people and not drinking water? Bro, it's everywhere. Okay? Please drink water. Hydration is good for you. Don't have a coffee after the scene. Don't have something super caffeinated. Have water and then have coffee. Okay? Make sure you have water first. Warmth. I cannot tell you how many people that I see at dungeons that have their own blankets and their little snuggies and their post-scene clothing, and I love it. I love it. I love it so much, right? Get that warmth in. Rest. Go in a corner, drink the water, wrap yourself up in your snuggie or your warm blanket, and just relax. Don't engage with anybody. Don't feel a need to force yourself to do something. Just breathe, right? Reassurance. This is actually really important as well. So, yes, as a top, as a Dom, you need to provide reassurance to your bottom, dynamic or not, if you have a scene with them. These are medical needs and they are kink practices. Both things can be true. If you have somebody you're playing with and they minimize aftercare, at this point, they're minimizing your health. Now, these studies don't necessarily distinguish the differences between physical and emotional aspects of it, but there are still studies that show that no matter what occurs, there needs to be a rest period after exertion and or stress, physical or emotional. Guess what? BDSM already has a language for this. We have a term for this. It's called aftercare. For people with chronic illness, aftercare is not cute, it's not extra, it's part of the necessary infrastructure that we need to survive that scene. Water. What is up with people and not drinking water? Bro, it's everywhere. Okay? Please drink water. Hydration is good for you. Don't have a coffee after the scene. Don't have something super caffeinated. Have water and then have coffee. Okay? Make sure you have water first. Warmth. I cannot tell you how many people that I see at dungeons that have their own blankets and their little snuggies and their post-scene clothing, and I love it. I love it. I love it so much, right? Get that warmth in. Rest. Go in a corner, drink the water, wrap yourself up in your snuggie or your warm blanket, and just relax. Don't engage with anybody. Don't feel a need to force yourself to do something. Just breathe, right? Reassurance. This is actually really important as well. So, yes, as a top, as a Dom, you need to provide reassurance to your bottom, dynamic or not, if you have a scene with them. These are medical needs and they are kink practices. Both things can be true. If you have somebody you're playing with and they minimize aftercare, at this point, they're minimizing your health. I really feel like we need to talk about the importance of disclosure and basically disclosure being seen as a risk calculation itself. There again is lots of research out there about chronic illness. And one of the things that is consistent with all of the research is that in these studies, it actually highlights disclosure as being emotionally risky. We're weighing safety, stigma. We're trying to prevent misunderstandings and miscommunications. But there's also a very complex layer of emotional labor. Kink negotiations, we already normalized disclosure. It talks about limits and triggers and medical considerations. That overlap. This is what actually creates safer conditions for honesty. The boundary here is disclosure is not owed to earn desire. Anybody who treats illness like an audition, basically, they've failed the ethics test. When our bodies become unreliable, power exchange needs to move to a more physiological aspect, an emotional aspect, or even more ritualistic. Studies on embodiment actually show meaning isn't limited to physical exertion. Command, structure, language, anticipation, these are all just as impactful as a physical scene could be or would be. Kink is not defined by endurance, it's defined by intention. Chronically ill kinksters often come here because they get creative earlier. Innovation comes from necessity and creativity. So the research that's out there is pretty blunt. Community reduces risk. Isolation actually worsens the outcome for chronic illness patients, not just physically, but mentally as well. Ethical kink communities, they offer a shared language, shared norms, and really good accountability structures. When this is done right, they function as a harm reduction space. That doesn't mean they're perfect. Don't romanticize it. There's issues everywhere, trust me. But they do offer something rare: informed, consent based connection. Unfortunately, there's an upward trend, and rates of chronic illness and disabilities and injuries, all of this are rising globally. It's not just a here in California thing. It's not just a here in the US thing. It's a worldwide trend, and it sucks. I mean, it hurts. It sucks to like be painful and in pain all the time. That's just demographic reality, unfortunately. And it's just, I don't know what to do. I don't know if we'll ever have an answer about how to figure out how to prevent chronic illnesses or maybe get better medicine to treat them earlier. I don't know. However, we need to focus on valuing communication. We need to ensure everyone understands how to communicate. Everyone knows how to negotiate, the importance of aftercare, adaptive consent, flexible play, and health awareness. These should all be things that should be talked about before play is even a consideration. Negotiation is something that should be normalized everywhere. They're the gold standard. Chronically ill kinksters aren't an exception. We're a force, we're a power. If that makes people uncomfortable, then good. Growth usually does. But it's time to grow, get with it, update that verbiage, update your understanding, and move forward, because all we can go from here is up. We can only get better. That's it. That's the lesson. Let's do better. Let's grow. Let's incorporate these things to make everyone have a good time, to make everyone feel better. So yeah, that's it. This is episode 18 of my podcast. This is why I'm not invited. It's New Year's Eve, you guys. Can you believe it? The year is gone. It's the 31st tonight. I'm not going to come out with that, new year, new me. None of that bullshit. I'm just going to sit here and just reflect on all of the things that have just kept me going. Just pause, just take a breath, just long enough to notice what actually kept you alive this year. Because I don't know about you, but a lot of people have just been going through it. This year, 2025, was not kind to anybody. Also, if you're like me and you have chronic pain, you have a chronic illness, and you're still showing up, hell yeah, to your body, your boundaries, your desires, that's not indulgence. That's discipline. Kink, it isn't going to fix us. Kink is not going to fix chronic illness. It's not going to make the pain go away. But I want you to know that whatever you're going through, it didn't break you this year, whether it was internal forces like your body turning against you or the external ones. They just taught you how to negotiate reality without lying to yourself. So take all the things that you've learned this year into next year. Be less apologetic. Give clearer yeses. Give better communication. Say no loudly. And maybe give yourself a little bit of mercy. You have been carrying that weight for a while. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a safe night. I hope you spend the night with people you want to be around, your chosen family, your for real family. I hope you get the care and comfort that you deserve and you desire. And remember, it's a new year tomorrow, right? All we can do is go up from here. Make sure to hydrate, drink water, do all of the things this next year in 2026 that you've been putting off since today, last year, since 2025, right? Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next year.